All right, we are back. It has been a while, but I'm ready to get back into things. And this is the first episode of a new series that I'm hoping to knock out in the next couple weeks. And that's painting the legions from the Horus Heresy without an airbrush. There's a lot of tutorials out there that use an airbrush, and for sure there are some that don't. I just, as someone who doesn't use an airbrush very much at all, I just thought I would put out some quick and easy videos how to paint all the legions with mostly contrast paint and definitely no airbrush. So this first one, we're going to start with the first legion, also the best legion, the Dark Angels. So we're going to start off with Black Templar contrast paint. This is just one of the new Mark 6 Marines. He is primed in Gray Seer. You could do a Zenithal if you wanted. Prime him in black and then spray Gray Seer from above, but I didn't really think it was necessary for this. I just thought that we can go straight in with Gray Seer and be absolutely fine. So I'm just going to cover the Marine in this color, being careful to avoid the belts on him, because that is the only other contrast color that we're going to be using. So this belt here and the one around his waist. With Marines like this, they have a lot of flat surface area, and sometimes contrast can be fiddly on those big flat areas. I just like to make sure that my brush is nice and wet when I start. Sometimes if your brush is dry when you start with contrast paint, it can kind of make it not work as well. I think that's just because you're pushing around a very liquidy paint with dry bristles instead of wetter ones. I don't know the exact reasons as to why it looks better, but it does, so I do it. And when you're doing this, you just want to focus on a volume completely and then move to the next. And so what I mean is do the entire shin guard, then move to the thigh guard, then etc., etc. So I'm just going to apply this all over the Marine. Like I said, everywhere except the belts, because we will do those in a different contrast paint. But yeah, this first one is pretty simple. They've got black armor. They've got some cool little details that we will add. And then I'll talk about some embellishments that you can go for if you want to. I'm not sure how many of them I'll add to this Marine in particular, but I will go through them at least to explain what one could do. So, as soon as I get this black completely applied to this Marine, I will come back and we'll do the next step. Alright, so we're back and our Black Templar is all nice and dry. And now we're going to move on to the second of the contrast paints, and I believe the one of only two contrast paints we're going to use on this guy. And that's Gore Grunt of Fur. And I'm just going to paint in the belts with this color. Some of these Marines, we will end up using several contrast colors, and some of them even 4 or 5, maybe even up to 7 or 8. But on this guy, just because his armor is all black, there's not really anywhere you can go after painting the miniature black. So we'll probably just use these two contrasts on him. You could, if you wanted, be more careful about applying the black and only apply it specifically to the armor, and then go back and use a bunch of different contrast paints on other stuff. I just find that it's easier to just paint the black everywhere and then use layer paints to paint in the rest of the details. Also, an option you could do, I really like doing the belts of the Space Marines in a brown leather color like this, especially the ones that are just kind of otherwise pretty monotone, just because it gives a little bit of a color pop, even though brown is fairly neutral. But if you want, you can just do it in the armor color, and a lot of GW art just shows them in the same armor color. But now we're going on to our first layer paint, and that's going to be Dawnstone, and we're just going to paint in the armor joints with this color. And also, there are a couple spots where I missed getting Black Templar on. That will either get covered by the step we're going to do after this one, or if I see that they have not been fixed by that, I'll just touch it up while something else is drying. But yeah, so we're going to use this Dawnstone to paint all the armor joints. Almost all the Marines have a prominent one here. On some of the poses, it's on the other arm, so just make sure you notice. I don't think any of the poses, except maybe the Sergeant, have joints exposed on both arms, but just keep your eye out and make sure you get all the joints properly painted in. The knees, or the back of the knees, are the big one that you need to think about, and then as well as around the hips. There are some also, you can see the joint from the front, and I'll show you that in a minute. On some of the Marines, though, I haven't even been bothering because you can hardly see it past the gun and stuff, but you could paint it still if you wanted to. So I'll show you that. On this pose, it's almost invisible, you can't see anything, but on some of the Marines, the gun is in a slightly different pose, and you can see the joints from the front. So if you can see them, just make sure you get them with your gray. So I'm just going to finish up this joint here along his butt and hip region, and then once that's all dry, I will come back and we'll do the next step. Alright, so our Dawnstone is nice and dry, and now we're going to go on to using two different colors. First is Necro Gold from Scale 75, and the other is Plate Mail Metal from the Army Painter. I can never remember the GW equivalent to Necro Gold. It's like Auric Armor, or it's one of the golds, you know. Here's the color that we're going to use. Get something similar from GW if you want that equivalency. And then this, the Plate Mail Metal from Army Painter, is Ironbreaker. Actually, I have Ironbreaker right here, I believe. So here you can see they're almost identical. This one has a little bit of pigment settled in the bottom, or mica settled in the bottom, so they look a little bit different, but they are almost identical. And I'm just using up this Plate Mail Metal after getting it when Ironbreaker was out of stock. But now that Ironbreaker's back in stock, I'm just going to use up the Plate Mail Metal before I move on. But we're going to start with Necro Gold, and there's only one detail on this Marine that we're doing that in, and that's these sort of, I'm not really sure what they are, these lines on his backpack. A lot of the chapters, or it's a lot of the legions, sorry, will use this, or a lot of the paint schemes of those legions have used this as sort of a color pop or some sort of difference between it and the surrounding bits of the armor. So I'm painting this in gold. Pretty much every other metal on this Marine is going to be silver. So this is a nice little bit of contrast on here. And it's also nice because it can be seen from every side of the miniature. You can see it from the front, both sides, and the back, which is always nice when you can get a color pop. Only have to paint one bit of the miniature and you get the color pop on the whole miniature. So now we're going to go on to Plate Mail Metal, and we're basically going to paint in the rest of the silver with this. So that's the details on the gun, the bayonet, the backpack. We haven't already painted. Yeah, pretty much everything else. So I'll start with the bayonet since it's pretty prominent. And if you have elected to put chain bayonets on these guys, I would do the exact same thing, except I would leave the main body of that bayonet black, and I would paint the teeth in silver. And then there's also this thing that helps connect it to the bolter. I would paint that in as silver as well. In this case, I'm leaving it black. But on that version, that's what I would do. So then we're just going to come in and paint in a couple details with this silver. I've not drilled my gun barrels yet. If I ever will even, I don't know. Then we have this clip here that holds the belt on. Oh, actually, I need to paint the rest of the belt there. I'll do that while our silver is drying. So we'll paint this in silver. There we go. And then there's another one down here. Just being very careful not to get this silver on our belt at all. And then what I do is just come in and all the stuff that's raised on the bolter, I just paint it in silver. You can do all sorts of different things with this. You can pretty much pick and choose what you want to be silver. I'm not super concerned with it. I just want, you know, there to be a little bit of contrast between the black and the other bits. So I just do that, and that's good enough for me. Actually, I might do this little spot back here as well. And then flip it around, and you can't really see anything else on the back here other than this, the magazine. So I'll just paint that on like that. So then, a lot of the legions will have these in silver, if they're, or if it's not in black. I am going to do them in silver. Painting it in black is obviously sort of pointless since our whole marine is black. Then these little side panels on the helmet, I'm going to paint them in black. And then this detail up here, I'm not sure if it's a camera or some sort of sensor. Whatever it is, it's getting painted in silver. Then I'm going to flip them around here, and I'm going to paint in these conduits in silver. And then these Marines have a bunch of rivets on them. I'll be perfectly honest, I don't want to paint all those rivets. So I'm just going to pick out the big ones here. There's 6 big rivets up here on the backpack. And I'm just going to pick those out very carefully, but leave the rest unpainted. Maybe one day I'll go back and paint them, but for now, I'm not doing it. So then I'm going to paint in the side thrusters. They're not thrusters, I guess, because this backpack doesn't help him move around, but exhaust ports maybe, whatever they might be. I'm going to paint them in silver. I guess I should brush up on my anatomy of a Space Marine armor. And then the last bit of silver to do on him are these nodules or whatever they are that are on all these shoulder pads on these guys. Just going to paint them in with silver. This was a little weird to me, having these shoulder pads on this side. Typically this is the side for the chapter symbol. So I just followed the instructions. A little mistake there. I'll just clean that up real quick. I just followed the instructions and put these on this side, but I don't think it would be a problem to just put them on the other side and then put the chapter symbol shoulder pad on this side. Just cleaning up this mistake here. Flood the area with water. Might have to go. Alright, we're back. I got a little cut off there at the end, but we just fixed up this mistake right in there and then painted that bit of the strap that I forgot about. Now we're ready to move on to the next step. So the next step is going to be corn red, and we're going to do the eye lenses, or the base layer for the eye lenses with this, and then also going to add a little bit of an extra detail with this as well. But first, I'm going to do the eye lenses. So I'm just going to come in very carefully. Get a nice solid coat of that on there. we go. Excellent. And then the Dark Angels like to have checkerboards on their on a lot of their stuff, usually red checkerboards. So there's not. Usually I like to do it on a knee pad. There aren't knee pads on this mark of armor. They're just the full shin guard there. So I am going to I could do it on like this bit of the hand, or maybe this part of the arm, or the bolter or something, but I'm just going to do it right here. So I'm just going to make a couple little sections here. Just trying to make them roughly even with each other. There we go. Just like that. Nothing crazy. And then I will come back with some of our Black Templar. And just make these other sections here a little bit darker. Just like that. Like I said, nothing crazy, but just a little bit of a red detail in addition to the eye lenses. So then I'm going to take a lighter red, Evil Sun Scarlet from GW is a good equivalent to this. This is, I don't even know what it is, Aldebaran Red. Sure, Aldebaran Red, obviously. So I'm just going to use some of this. Evil Sun Scarlet, like I said, is the GW equivalent. But really, any lighter red will do. This is almost orange. And I'm just going to come in with this. And I'm just going to paint a little bit of this in a smaller area on the islands. There we go. Just like that. So now we have a little bit of contrast on there. And then I'm going to come to the bottom of my red checkers here. And just do a little bit of an edge highlight with that. Alright, so that is basically it. We've got a couple final steps. I'm going to let him completely dry though before I come back and do those. And once he is all dry, we'll get to it. Alright, so we're back and we're going to do our final two steps here. First one is going to go back to our Dawnstone. And we're just going to get a kind of crappy brush. You know, something with a bunch of like separated bristles and stuff in it. Get some on our brush and wipe most of it off. Not necessarily as much as with a dry brush, but like I said, most of it. Then we're just going to come along the armor panels here, and we're just going to swipe up. Go along here like this. Just swiping up like that. And then maybe come along the diagonal here. I'm going to do the same thing on the helmet, just swiping up. Get a little more paint on there. And then on things, well, the knee pads are kind of hidden on this one, but on the knee pads, I'm just going to do the same thing, but swipe down. Just like this. Hidden back there. And then on the bottom of the legs, I'm going to swipe up. And then on the backpack, I'm going to swipe up. Make sure to get these exhaust ports. On the butt plate, I'm going to swipe up as well. Make sure to get the edges of these plates back here. And then just kind of pick your direction and swipe on the rest of the armor panels. That's sort of like a poor man's edge highlight, I guess you'll say. But also sort of gives it a little bit of battle damage. Like there's there's been some scratches and stuff from running around a perpetual war for the last 13 years. Just get this side of the helmet and the nose on these beaky boys. And then I'm going to get the bolter, and I'm just going to go all over the bolter here. And I guess I'll get these as well. So then, we're going to move to our last step, which is good old-fashioned Nuln Oil. And we're just going to put that with a different brush. We don't want our gray bleeding into our Nuln Oil. We're going to put that all over the silver, the gold, and the red if you want to. There's only a little bit of red. I'm actually going to put it all over the bolter here, just to differentiate the bolter, even though it is black. Just differentiate it a little bit from the armor. It won't change much, admittedly, but it will change a tiny bit, and I think it will be worth it. Then I'm actually gonna do this whole shoulder pad, come to think of it, just to get all of the little bumps there. These little bits on the side of the helmet, and this on the top. Here, and then the rest of these back here. These conduits. There we go. And then, of course, the joints in the armor. I'm just going to wipe it off if I get a lot on the surrounding black. So I don't really want it on there, I just want it on the joints. There we go, and then the joint right here in front. And this one right there. Alright, so that will about do it for our Dark Angel. Right about now, you'll be seeing him on a base. I think I'll probably base these 18 Marines all the same. So this will be the first one that you're looking at, and however he's based, however I decide to base him, that's how the rest of them will be based. So, yeah, that'll do it. I will see you guys in the next video, which will be the Emperor's Children. Since we don't know what Legion number 2 is, we'll just skip straight to 3. And yeah, so thank you everybody for watching. If you like the video, feel free to like and subscribe. And again, I will see you on the next one.